Hi, I'm Whitney Morgan, Hashimoto's coach, functional medicine practitioner, and co-founder of the Functional Health Alliance. One of the first recommendations I make to clients with Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism is to ditch wheat and gluten. Now, in my experience, it's almost impossible to improve thyroid health without taking this first critical step. Also, it's not enough to just stop eating wheat and gluten. Living a gluten-free life usually means getting wheat and gluten out of your house completely. Why? Because as long as wheat and gluten are still walking through your front door, chances are you'll get frequent micro exposures that keep you inflamed. In today's video, I'll share a case study that illustrates my point while giving you a tour of the Wheat Zoomer, which is one of the functional lab tests that I use in my practice. But before we jump into it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the little bell next to it so you'll get notified every time I post a new video. The results I'm reviewing today are those from my client, Lisa. So let me give you a few highlights about her. Lisa was 42 years old when she came to me. She was diagnosed with Hashimoto's 10 years earlier and had been taking levothyroxine ever since. She was married with 2 children at home. Her main complaints were eczema on her hands, frequent anxiety attacks, fatigue, and elevated thyroid antibodies. Now, Lisa had been gluten-free for 5 years, and she rarely dined out at restaurants. She handled almost all of the cooking and food prep, which included gluten-containing dishes for her family. We ran a Wheat Zoomer along with a few other food Zoomers before investigating other areas, because we needed to confirm that Lisa was as gluten-free as she thought. Now, the Wheat Zoomer answers a few basic questions. First, are you being exposed to wheat and gluten? Second, are you sensitive to either? And third, do you have a leaky gut? Now, if you don't already know your celiac genetic information, I recommend adding that to the test. It costs very little, so it's really worth it. All right, let's dig into Lisa's results. As you can see here, Lisa carries the HLA-DQ2 gene for celiac disease. Of the 2 primary genes associated with celiac disease, the DQ2 poses the highest risk factor for developing celiac disease. Now, the summary page of the Wheat Zoomer, which I'm not showing the entire summary page here, but one thing I wanted to show you that I think is really valuable about the summary is that we see Lisa's overall Wheat Zoomer and intestinal permeability score. So in a very clear snapshot, we know that Lisa has significant issues with wheat and that her gut integrity is compromised. The Wheat Zoomer includes several different panels or sections. The first 2 panels on the test are specific for celiac disease, and that's what we're looking at here. The first one is a traditional celiac panel. Now, in order to test positive on this panel, someone would have to have full-blown celiac disease. Obviously, Lisa has no indication of full-blown celiac. That's good news. The panel underneath it is what I call the fusion peptide panel. What this panel is designed to do is identify those people who maybe don't have full-blown celiac disease yet, but they're on their way. So it's considered to be predictive. Both of these panels for Lisa are negative, so that's good news. This next section is the intestinal permeability panel, which measures zonulin, anti-zonulin, anti-actin, and anti-LPS, or what's called anti-lipopolysaccharides. And as you can see, Lisa has high antibodies to both actin and zonulin, as well as high zonulin itself. Her results indicate that there is damage to the cells that line the gut and also to the tight junctions that lie between each of the cells. In other words, things are leaking around the cells and through the cells. A leaky gut is one of those first dominoes that increases someone's risk for developing autoimmune disease in the future. So this is a really important panel to test. It is like almost the #1 key to keeping tabs on your gut health. Next, we have the transglutaminase panel and the wheat germ panel. Now, the transglutaminase panel isn't looking at wheat reactions. What it's looking at is antibodies to 2 very specific enzymes, transglutaminase 3 and transglutaminase 6. If someone has elevated antibodies to either one of these enzymes, it can indicate that there is some autoimmune progression going on either at the skin or inside the brain. Now, clearly, Lisa's transglutaminase panel is negative, so there's no indication of active autoimmune progression in terms of brain or skin. So that's good news. Now, the wheat germ panel is looking specifically at a person's exposure and reaction to wheat germ agglutinin. We also call this WGA. WGA is the lectin of wheat. You might have heard about plant lectins and how different lectins can cause different health issues. Well, wheat germ, or the wheat lectin, is kind of the big bad of all the lectins. And the reason for that is because not only does it break down the gut lining, causing a leaky gut, it also interferes with the absorption of vitamin D. And when it does get through the gut lining and into the bloodstream, it can attach to almost every single organ or tissue in the body. So when wheat germ attaches itself to tissue where it doesn't belong, and the immune system recognizes it and goes after it to destroy it, the surrounding tissue can get destroyed in the process. And this is what is known as autoimmunity by collateral damage. So wheat germ can actually be one of the primary triggers for developing Hashimoto's. Now, the next two panels are the gluten panels. So gluten is a very large, complex protein that can be broken down into many unique peptides. And you can think of these peptides as puzzle pieces. Basically, you put all the puzzle pieces together, you've got gluten. So we're looking at two panels here, the gliadin panel and the glutenin panel. And these are testing for exposure and sensitivity to all of the different puzzle pieces of gluten. So this absolutely confirms for us that yes, Lisa is sensitive to gluten and she has been exposed in the previous 1 to 4 months before the blood draw. The final panel on the wheat zoomer is the non-gluten wheat panel. And you can see here that Lisa is reactive to at least two of those puzzle pieces, the amylase protease inhibitors and the globulins. 95% of people who are gluten sensitive are also sensitive to the non-gluten parts of wheat. So in summary, Lisa's wheat zoomer reveals that she has a leaky gut and that she's not as gluten-free as she thought. And unfortunately, her immune system is having a significant inflammatory response to her wheat and gluten exposures. Considering her genetics, she's playing Russian roulette with celiac disease. And as long as she continues to be exposed to wheat and gluten, she runs the risk of that HLA-DQ2 gene activating. So what we did is Lisa eliminated wheat and gluten, of course. She also replaced cow dairy with goat and sheep, and she started avoiding corn. Lisa also spent a few months taking specific supplements targeted to heal that leaky gut and support her immune system. And her results were amazing. Her TPO and thyroglobulin antibodies came down dramatically, below 10 and 2 respectively. Her eczema outbreaks resolved, and so did her anxiety attacks. Now, it took about 8 weeks for the dietary changes to have enough of an impact for her anxiety to start resolving, but she really noticed the difference around a couple of months. She experienced improved mental clarity and improved memory, and she had enough energy to resume her previous exercise routine. If you have hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's and you have not given up gluten yet, please consider taking that first critical step. Now, if you are gluten-free, no matter how long you've been gluten-free, if you don't live in a gluten-free house, I hope you will consider running a wheat zoomer just to make sure that nothing is sneaking through your defenses. If this video has inspired you to dig deeper and figure out if wheat and gluten are still causing problems for you and for your thyroid, I hope you'll consider enrolling in my Gut Health Groundwork. This is my baby steps entry-level coaching program, which includes one functional lab test. You can choose between the GI map or the wheat zoomer. You'll also get 3 coaching sessions, a recorded analysis of your lab results, personalized health protocol based on your lab verified data, and unlimited messaging with me throughout the entire process. If you learned something today, let me know. Subscribe to my channel, like the video, or share the video with a friend who has thyroid issues. And if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I do try my best to answer each one. See you next time.